Barbarians are a lot of fun, but I also feel as though they're not as good in 2024 D&D as they were in 2014 D&D, mostly because the fighter is just so good, so very, very cool. However, if you like getting angry, or whatever version of rage it is that you think, and also you're using some of the cool third-party subclasses as well, of which there are many, then you might want to, or there are the 2024 ones. To be fair, the new PHP subclasses are pretty sick. Anyway, there are a bunch of third-party feats which go really, really well with Barbarians, and I thought it would be fun today to continue on our journey of going through the various classes and third-party feats and give you a list of the best ones to take for a Barbarian. So let's kick off with some origin feats, as, you know, seems good. Fate Gambler is from the Crooked Moon book. It allows you to gain heroic inspiration whenever you succeed in an ability or check made against another creature, which isn't going to happen that often unless you're intimidating them or something, or grappling them, perhaps, potentially. Or when you reduce a creature to 0 hit points as a barbarian, that's probably going to happen a lot. Or when a creature fails a saving throw you forced it to make, which could happen depending on your subclass. You don't get that if the creature has a CR of 0 or lacks a CR, so it's against a player, so you can't, like, abuse it. But in general fights, this can give you a lot of extra heroic inspirations, and while you likely have advantage on all of your attacks because of reckless attack, it's nice to be able to have advantage on your saving throws as a barbarian, because sometimes they do suffer outside of the dexterity saving throws. Also, you get the Win Big ability, which as a bonus action lets you expend your heroic inspiration to gain a number of temp health equal to your level. And of all the classes there are in D&D, no class does temp health better than the Barbarian, because you're usually taking half damage. So this is a very cool feat. Next is a Cthulhu by Torchlight origin feat. I do think the Cthulhu by Torchlight origin feats are a little strong, to say the least. I would allow all of my players to choose one, or none of them, is how I balance that, because these are really good. I Survived to Tell the Tale gives you 3 cool things. You get a +10 bonus to your speed, which is obviously very, very useful. If you would take damage that would reduce you to 0 hit points, you can immediately regain hit points equal to your level, but you can only do that once per long rest. That's still pretty good. And if you would gain the grapple condition, you can roll a d20, and on a 10 or higher, you just don't get grappled instead, which is pretty nice. These are all good things for a melee combatant, and obviously being able to just stand back up instead is a nice bonus to any barbarian. We are now going to general feats, and the first one is a hulking figure from Grim Hollow. This lets you boost your strength or your con by 1, and once per turn when you deal damage with an unarmed strike, you can deal an extra 1d4 of bludgeoning damage. Unarmed strike barbarians aren't that common, but there are a few subclasses within, I believe it's within the Grim Hollow book, that do kind of want you to do that, so this is a nice boost for that specifically. Along with that, you also count as one size larger than you are, up to a maximum of large when determining your carrying capacity, which is nice. The thing that really sells this for me, though, is that you get to add your strength modifier to the roll when you make a charisma check, intimidation, persuasion, or performance. This is whether you have rage active or not. So you could potentially add your strength modifier twice if you are raging, because you get to do so as your rage with, I think, intimidation and maybe persuasion. So that's a nice little bonus if you're playing a face character as a barbarian, which is perfectly reasonable. And I think I want to build that. I might build that next, or I might have already done that, because I'm recording this in the past. Anyway, Brutal Grip is from Valdus Spire of Secrets. It's one of my favorites conceptually. It increases your strength by 1, and if you are wielding a melee weapon with a two-handed property, you can do so on one hand, which means you can use a greatsword and a shield, which is a nice little AC boost to barbarians that still want to use big weapons. And along with that, when you're wielding a melee weapon with a versatile property in one hand, it gains the light property for you, which means you can use a longsword and then use Nick if you have that as your proficiency, which is super cool. It's nice and simple. Very good stuff. If you are looking to make sure that you never die, which as a barbarian is a fairly sensible thing to do, you can pick up the Death Defier feat from the Crooked Moon. It allows you to increase your constitution by 1, and you get to add your constitution modifier to your death saving throws, which makes them substantially more likely to succeed, especially if you are going full tank, in which case you could potentially add up to 5 points to your death saving throws, making them a lot easier to pass. Plus, if an effect would kill you outright without death saving throws, or would reduce you directly to 0 hit points without dealing damage, there are a few spells that do that, you instead get reduced to a number of hit points equal to your level. You can only do this once per long rest, but that's just kind of like a nice little bit of flavour on top of the other stuff you're getting. Next is Thrown Weapon Master. This is really, really good for thrown weapon builds. shockingly. This is the feat I used for the Hammer Brother build I did, where you're just yeeting as many hammers as possible. You get to increase your strength or dex by 1, and if you take the attack action to make a ranged attack roll using a simple weapon that has the thrown property, you can make 2 additional ranged attacks using simple weapons that have the thrown property as a bonus action. While barbarians do like to use their bonus action to rage and a couple of other things, generally speaking, I think they're one of the classes that can end up bonus action with a bonus action that's just not very useful. So this is great. You can also pick up all simple weapons with the thrown property that within 5 feet of you with a bonus action, but most importantly, on top of all the other stuff, any simple weapons with the thrown property that you are proficient with gain the returning property, which means that when you throw them, whether you hit or miss, they make their way back to you, which is fantastic. This is just a really strong feat, and what I like about this, on Barbarian specifically, is you get to add your rage damage modifier to each of those attacks. So doing lots of little attacks on a Barbarian can be better if you're looking to maximize the teeny tiny bonus you get from your rage damage. Wizards of the Coast someone needs to make a feat that benefits hitting just once. I think the Gunslinger class has that with a Sharpshooter, but it's quite late in the levels. I'd love to see a feat that encourages just hitting once and getting a massive damage boost. So if you forgo your other attacks, you get to do X amount extra damage, but alas. Next is Iron Hero, which is from Valda's Spire of Secrets. This one is quite complicated. You get to increase your strength or dex by 1. If you are attacked by a creature with a CR that's higher than your level, you gain a +2 to your AC for that attack, which is lovely. You get advantage on attack rolls against any creature that has reduced one of your allies to 0 hit points since the end of your last turn, which can also be very good. And if a creature takes a legendary action, you can take a reaction to stop them doing that, basically. You can do that a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all uses of that on a long rest. It's worth noting that the feat as written does not have a range limit on the interceding that you do. I would say it's within melee range. Any sensible... How often is it you hear me talking about nerfing a third-party feature, but here we are. There has to be a limit on the range on this, or it's too strong. So it is a little niche. It's not always going to be good, but if you're fighting the good fight, it can be really, really powerful. Finally, we have a feat which is going to constantly appear in these videos. Falls. We have Focused Critical, which lets you improve your dex or strength by 1, and your attack rolls or with weapons and unarmed strikes can score a critical hit on a 19 or a 20 on the d20. This is pretty good. If you're playing an Elvish Barbarian, then you can potentially do truly silly amounts of damage if you're taking Elven accuracy as well. I think I did something similar on my Crit Fisher build, so check that out, I guess. One day I'll remember to put cards in, but it's probably not today. But yeah, this is probably the best feat you can take on nearly everyone, generally speaking. It's good all the time. It turns out doubling your chance to crit is good, just very good. But that is it for the best third-party feats for Barbarians. There are some really, really cool ones in there. I am going to now go off and build a Face Barbarian. Probably the Path of the Split Mind, is it? The Path of the something or other from Grim Hollow. The Jekyll and Hyde one. Anyway, I'm going to go make that. Have a wonderful day. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Don't say anything if you didn't. Shh. And I will see you next time, whenever that is. Do take care of yourselves. Goodbye.